Guys, I'm a huge fan of gamification, so I'm thrilled to have this conversation today. I think one good way to start is just like if you use gamification in some way in your, we have a very diverse set of companies here. We have a bit of VC, a bit of everything. So we'll keep it centered around gamification. If you use it in any way, or if you've seen anything interesting in this year, um, can't hear it? It's better? Thank you. So you want me to repeat that? You want me to repeat that? You're good? Grab a mic.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe a quick intro. My name is Yat, chairman and co-founder of Animoca Brands. And to your question around sort of, I guess, gamification, well, I guess the high-level way that we think of gamification as a whole is that everything is a game in one form or another, right? It's not just that you play games. It's like even when you go to school and you have something like, grade, you have a grade A or grade B or grade C. Actually, that's kind of a type of gamification as well that we see. But what I see in Web3 in particular, to me, gamification is also making the action fun. And when you make something fun and entertaining, that's actually how you bring people into the space. So we see that, for instance, a lot in the gamification of finance with DeFi is actually one of those perfect examples. And so they have funny names, like, they name them after fruits or after funny things. That's kind of funny and entertaining. But the mechanism of staking, for instance, is actually a gaming type model, right? Where you're basically creating some kind of reputation and system, where you're then creating credit for something for what you receive. And then the element is social as well, because in blockchain, everything is transparent and open. So I can see what you're doing and I can see what you're doing. And so that element of, again, provides a form of gamification because you have game theory apply as well, where people can start competing and you have leaderboards. That's one of the reasons why staking protocols have leaderboards. That's a form of gamification as well. Who's the best staker? Who's doing this more in money and whatever, right? So I think there's so many elements that we're both consciously and subconsciously already implementing, because I think the act of gaming and gamification is actually, I think, a deeply human thing.
Yeah, I'm going to do a quick pause. If we could get the mics to be, the volume to be set up higher so guests can hear each other. Thank you.
I didn't hear the question.
So basically, do you use gamification in your company, or have you seen anything interesting this year around gamification?
So first of all, I'm David Palmer. I'm Chief Product Officer of Vodafone. So we're one of the largest telecoms providers, technology companies in the world globally. We're looking at all of the technologies, AI, Web3, and specifically blockchain linked to our mobile phone network. But in terms of gamification, part of the battle you have now is for the customer touch point, right? So while you can have a lot of these technologies, the key thing is how you get customers to engage with these technologies. Gamification linked to mobile phones. So there's 8 billion mobile phones forecast to be in operation by 2030. And what we've been working on is how you can link gamification to provide a forum for customers to interact with AI and other services using this. So we're doing a lot of work on this. We feel that that is a key part of engaging customers going forwards. We'd love to share more in this panel.
My name is Johnson. I'm the founder and CEO for Ambrus Studio. So we're a Web3 gaming studio. So obviously we develop games, because of that, we do a lot of gamification in our game as well. But in addition to the core gameplay loop, within Web3, we also believe in the concept of compete to earn. So we want to leverage this gamification to make people deeply engaged, and then also refer a friend program, and then leverage Web3 incentives for people to do marketing activity for us that adds value rather than just play the game themselves. Even if for earning, if they don't want to play it, we don't want that. We don't want that. We want people to focus on adding activities that's sustainable. So that's what we do around the game design as well as gamification in Web3.
Hi, Jonathan Bouzanquet from Playable Games. We're a studio as well. We're
Get closer.
in the process of building like a version of Epic Games or Steam.
Just get your mic closer so we can hear you.
Sorry,
Very
is that
close.
better?
Yeah, that's so much better.
Okay. So being a studio, we're building out 30 games over the next 10 years, and we're going to be buying games along the way as well as building internally. We've got 5 teams building games for us at the moment. The gamification of what we're doing is our number one goal is games have to be fun. So there's no use building a game if it's just to make money. But playing games just for fun is also, most people would consider a waste of time. So our goal is to join these two things together where you can actually have a fun game where you enjoy playing it and you have the chance to actually earn. So that is the ultimate gamification as far as we're concerned.
Interesting. Jason, how would you judge the current state of gaming based on this year specifically? Do you have any ways how you would give it like a title, let's say? Like, how would you judge it based on this year specifically? Is there specific stage we're at? You're seeing like new trends?
So those are a few big questions. I think this year is super interesting, especially going into next year, where we're really going to see a lot of high quality games that doesn't focus on play to earn, get initial success in the market. So I'm super optimistic about the gaming industry in general, especially in Web3. I feel like in the past cycle, gaming has not gotten the amount of attention and love from the industry yet, but I think it's definitely coming in the next 12 months. And then if you say one game that has really been able to disrupt the Web3 gaming industry, I think I would say Off the Grid as well, which is doing really well. And then something that we are doing, E4C Final Salvation, we use gaming. We use Web3 to add value to player experience and solve traditional gaming problems, and which allows us to now go into nascent emerging markets, India, South Asia, Middle East, Africa. We think it's also a super interesting play. And I think that gaming combined with Web3, which allows for nascent emerging markets to now be profitable, that's going to be another big scene coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, clearly, I think Off the Grid is a good example of a game that's trying to sort of bring the Web 2 gamer into Web 3. I think one important thing to sort of reflect over the last couple of years is that the gamers that are playing Web 3 games today are mostly not people who play Web 2 games. They're not the same audiences for the time being. And we saw one of the major disruptions for this year was what happened with Ton and Telegram, basically allowing for a mass group of users. Because one of the problems that we had in Web3 was Apple, Steam, Facebook, Google, they actually all sort of made it difficult for you to launch a Web3 game because either they didn't allow NFTs or you couldn't use a token, or these elements that actually made it hard for them to do that. So that changed. And with what Ton did, basically opening up essentially the Telegram ecosystem, it allowed for essentially mass onboarding of a certain type of gamer to basically play these type of games. And yes, many of them are more of the tap to earn, play to earn type of area, and very simple in gameplay. But just like in mobile gaming, when you had sort of a large swath of users come in for casual games, a percentage of them then ended up going down playing sort of, let's call it the more sort of mid-core, hardcore type of games. And I think what you're seeing with like many of the game investments, like we ourselves have about 160 gaming companies that we've invested in, but there's actually hundreds more, and they're all launching their games actually in the next sort of 12 to 18 months. And so it takes like many years to make a good game, and they're all coming out. So I think 25 is going to be a big year for gaming, Web3 gaming.
Interesting. Jonathan, any thoughts? Any thoughts on how would you judge the gaming industry this year, based on this year?
Well, I think what the other attendees have said is accurate. Off the Grid's definitely been the first game to punch through into the what we call Web 2 gaming sphere, and they're actually being taken notice of. Obviously, they've got some issues, but that's all new games have that. I think we're going to see a lot more games come through now that are actual proper games. So last cycle was what we call the clickers. So they would just do something to earn something. That's not really proper games. We're going to see proper games now, like Off the Grid. So when that becomes mainstream, I think where Web3 has an advantage over traditional game devs is that we're funded. So building games is expensive and it's time consuming, and almost every studio that starts runs out of money. So Web3 has the big advantage that we have an ability to raise funds without the game making a profit in the first week of launch. So we actually have a chance to build the game. For example, our game Nexus that we launched, our first iteration was good, but it wasn't what we really wanted because it takes time. And as we've had time, we've been able to get it better and better. So I think that's where Web3 is going to overtake Web2, is that we're not scratching around having we don't need to have an absolute success immediately. We can actually wait and grow with the community.
Interesting. David, is Vodafone coming to the Metaverse? What's happening?
I'm the author of a book called The Business of the Metaverse, a guide to the use of AI and Web3. And I've looked at this topic of Web3 adoption, right? And I think when we talk about gamification, it's not just about games. It's about how you can get people to interact with Web3. Now, one of the problems with Web3 so far, if you look at adoption figures, 8 billion mobile phones by 2030. We're expecting 5.6 billion digital wallets. So these are your Google wallets, your Apple wallets. So that's 56% penetration of the population. And if you look at the forecast for Web3, it's around 330 million accounts, right? So it's not even on the same charts as the other things. So part of what we're looking at is how you can use gamification or better user experiences that gets more engagement from users to start engaging with Web3 in a way that it adds value. And some of that, there's a few things that are happening, right? One of them is, of course, better games, on Web3. But you've got AI. So AI agents is going to be a big part of this. It's the middleware that's joining up Web3, AI, Web2, etc. Building AI into games is the next front that we have, right? The other side is obviously getting Web3 to a point where it scales. And you just have to look at the figures, right? 8 billion mobile phones, 5.6 billion digital wallets, 300 million digital accounts on blockchain. So obviously, getting games to work effectively on phones and and using wallets for the monetary side of it will be absolutely key. And then there's another thing that's happening in terms of the metaverse, right? One of the key things that's happening in terms of the metaverse is the move to more portable devices. So you have virtual reality headsets, the Apple Vision Pro. You've got the Orion headset from that's being tried by Meta and the Meta Vision Pro, but they're limited use. Now we're seeing this move to the Ray-Ban glasses. So these are accessing metaverse or immersive content using glasses that have AI agents embedded. And I believe that that's going to be an important front in how we access gaming and gamification in the future, right? Where that starts to be linked to blockchain in a way that adds value, I think is going to be a key front in this evolution.
Interesting. Yeah, is the metaverse coming back in terms of trend? Is everyone going to start talking about metaverse in 2025?
Well, first, I don't think the metaverse ever left. I think one of the reasons why people talk about the metaverse being so-called dead is because when Facebook renamed themselves to Meta, they kind of took over the branding of the metaverse. And when Facebook's version of the metaverse didn't work out, everyone sort of pointed fingers towards Facebook and said, oh, that didn't work out, so the whole thing is dead. But actually what's happening in the Web3 space, actually I would say it's doing quite well. I mean, I'm not just talking about token prices, I'm talking about user adoption numbers. And maybe the numbers are small in comparison to the rest of general internet user numbers in comparison to what we call, I guess, an open metaverse, which is the way that we define participants in the open metaverse is people who actually have digital property rights, meaning they actually own the assets that they're using. And when we think about things like, Apple Vision Pro or basically devices that these are ways in which you can interface, I guess, with the metaverse, but they're not the metaverse in and of itself. That's kind of how we look at that. And maybe to the comment around AI agents, I actually think AI agents are going to be one of the major areas of mass adoption because people aren't going to be looking at having a wallet. They're just going to communicate with the agent that's going to manage all the wallets of different types that are out there. And so I think we'll see an explosion of that essentially. And I think the other thing about gaming, which is interesting, is that the type of gaming AIs that we're mostly dealing with today are NPCs. And NPCs are generally pretty, dumb AIs, as it were.
Yeah.
But actually, with the AI models that are out there, they're actually going to emerge in this way where you can actually have more deeper interactions and they can basically become more portable. And we expect that type of thing to happen as well. But maybe just quickly on sort of the state of the metaverse right now, the projection of the whole Web3 space right now, we're about $3.6 trillion. I think Standard Chartered projected that by 2026, it'll be $10 trillion. Who knows, right? But the point being is that it's a growth market. And I think lots of the narrative we're seeing, and this will affect everything in Web3, including gaming and the open metaverse, is around the US, right? The current administration is as pro Web3 as ever. The cabinet, Congress, the president, right? And of course, the regulatory side will change. All eyes are on where the US is going. That means you should expect that nations around the world are all going to start adopting basically Web3 policies. Very simple example. If a US business is now accepting basically crypto or Web3 assets, digital assets, they're going to be the ones that are going to say, okay, I'm going to send you a wire transfer or I'm going to send you basically digital assets, right? Like USDT, USDC. The other end of the spectrum, where no matter where you're in the world, has to be able to receive that. So we're going to see an opening up of all these regulations around the world just to be able to do business with America, which then will give which will just give rise to the demand around why you need it. So the wallet, why do you have a wallet? Because I have a wallet so I can do business and transactions and purchases. But now actually, I need to have a wallet to do these kind of businesses and transactions just because everyone else has it, right? I can't transact with you if I don't have a digital wallet, or and to me, the interface is not the driver. The interface is, the mobile phone's pretty user-friendly, but if you had given a mobile phone to my mom like that 15 years ago, she'd be like, what is this? I don't know how to use it. We've just become socialized to it because everyone else understands this interface. We've learned it over time.
Yeah.
Like, don't tell me opening a bank account is easy. It's one of the most difficult things to do. A wallet is much easier. So when we actually have the ability, the driver is the use case of, oh, I need it to do business with you or to engage with you or do something. And I think that's what's going to happen in 25, where we'll see an explosion of wallets because the demand and the supply side will come together.
Interesting. Jonathan, is it in the strategy to go full on the metaverse at some point? How you've been approaching it strategy-wise?
We're building a very small part of the metaverse at the moment. Our philosophy is that the metaverse will be like the internet. So it's not going to be one company that gets it right. It'll be a joint, and you'll go from our metaverse to Ambrus metaverse across to someone else's metaverse, and you won't even know you're passing through a gate. So we've decided to build a very functional small part. We're building like a, can't think of the word, basically a place to hold conversations like this. So an amphitheatre is the correct word. So we're building a complete amphitheatre where the audience can pop in and the speakers are on the stage and they can zone in from anywhere in the world. And part of our goal is to rent that out to other companies around the world to use. So, and we're starting there. And then from that, you'll be able to leave that particular place and go into one of our games just through a door. So you won't have to log out of that and go somewhere else. And we're starting at a particular point and moving outwards. But people need to stop thinking of the metaverse, as you said just before. Meta sort of tried to claim it, as in Facebook tried to claim it. But everyone's going to build a different part of it, and it'll be just like the internet. Different metaverses will be like a website, and they'll all link together. And so you'll just move along from part to part, and you'll go through a doorway, and suddenly you're in outback ancient Rome, and you go through a different doorway, and you're in some medieval forest. So and as we bring AI combined with virtual reality, combined with gamification, it's going to be an amazing place. But what we're seeing right now is literally the first footsteps. So it's going to be a year or two before we start
gonna
getting
take
into
time.
immersive properties.
Interesting, yeah. Johnson, any thoughts?
On the topic of metaverse, definitely think it's the future, but it's very, very broadly used, right? I think at the end of the day, people are all building their own version of metaverse. You talk about interoperability, the blockchains don't even talk to each other right now. So, it's hard for, a real metaverse, like a metaverse to happen yet. But it will happen, right? Decentralization, Web3, the technology, all the bridges is, inherently built on the same spirit of decentralization and interoperability. So that one day that will happen. For now, what we're doing is, on one hand, we build our game, Final Salvation. On the other hand, we're building in collaboration with our protocol partner, which is Sui, a game publishing platform. And then we're hoping to use that as a foundation to build a metaverse. I think there'll be many, many others who try to do the same thing. These will all be spurring and growing in their own direction for now. But then when the time comes, there will be integration. And then there will be finally interoperability between different metaverses. Will take a few years, but at least right now we're all getting users, more players, making Web3 gaming mainstream. I think that's the more important task for now.
For a long time. Oh, go.
No, I was just going to say, I agree totally. The metaverse has not gone anywhere, right? So there was forecasts. That the metaverse, the value of the opportunity by 2030 would be anywhere between 1 trillion and 5 trillion. A lot of that, was based on metaverse. A lot of people shifting things from the physical world into the virtual world. But there's 3 phases to that. The first phase of the metaverse is what we call the embedded metaverse. So this is where you start to embed virtual reality experiences or augmented reality experiences into existing platforms. If you look at the size of Meta, previously Facebook, they have almost 4 billion concurrent users, right? As you see them start to build more and more value-added virtual reality experiences, cinemas, gaming, messaging, working, collaborative working, you'll start to see those numbers of users start to increase significantly. And that's what we call the embedded metaverse. You embed it in Facebook, you embed it in Instagram, you embed it in WhatsApp, right? Where it adds value. Then the second stage is where you see the converged metaverse, the interoperable metaverse. So this is the next stage where you can start going from WhatsApp to Snapchat to Axie Infinity. And the key thing is that you can port your identity and you can also port your value in the form of tokens or whatever. You can take value from one game to another. Then the final phase, which is maybe 10, 15 years away, is where you have the converged metaverse. And this is where you have one metaverse, which is sort of like the internet today, but a virtual version. And those are the 3 phases that you'll see in the development of the metaverse. And at the moment, we're at the beginning of the first phase. Right? Sorry.
Yeah, no, just to address some of this one. So I think when we talk about interoperability, there's different phases to this, but I would argue that actually Web3 is already very interoperable, at least on the liquidity front. And that has to do because blockchain is permissionless. Basically, this permissionless nature of blockchain allows people to build on top of systems and transfer around essentially, vampire attack users or build on different sort of blockchain L1, L2s, and then attract users from one network to another. I mean, for instance, and a perfect example of this just recently is, with Igloo, with Pudgy Penguins, right? Yeah. It's an NFT series, obviously launched on Ethereum, but they're doing the token on Solana, and they're basically bridging communities across. Why? Because you have things like Layer 0 or Wormhole, ways in which you can bridge these assets already. And actually, that's the reason why, when Jonathan was talking, for instance, why it's easier to get funding. The reason why it's easier for you to get funding is because liquidity can flow freely around all these blockchains. One of the problems we have in Web 2 is that value is locked in Apple or in Steam or in Google, and the flow of money cannot transfer around. There's no liquidity. But in Web 3, there is no gate. So maybe we haven't built a framework yet around, hey, maybe I can't use my game item in your game, but it's not up to the game. Actually, it's up to the game developer themselves to actually use the assets and bring them to you. So, for instance, if you wanted to go after the Pudgy Penguin community and you wanted to bring them to become your customers, all you got to do is airdrop stuff to them, right? That's kind of like saying, hey, how do I reach my Fortnite customers? How can I reach Fortnite customers? I can just give Fortnite customers directly value to come play my game. The reason why it doesn't work in Web 2 is because you can't do that, because they built a wall to make sure you can't do it. But in Web 3, it's open and permissionless. So if you look at OpenSea, they were once the top of NFTs. And then, Blur basically vampire attacked them and all those guys. And that's the whole point. You create a very free and open market. So I agree with you that interoperability isn't maybe at the pinnacle where we'd like it to be. But we're already at this point where, and it's from this liquidity. It's also the reason why, when Bitcoin is at $100,000, every other altcoin moves up with it, right? Why? Because liquidity flows around. If it was a Web 2 world, if Bitcoin becomes even $200,000, every altcoin would actually go down, right? Which is the model we have today. So I think that's the beauty of Web 3, and I think that's what we can leverage best.
For a long time, there was the belief that gaming would be the biggest driver for mainstream adoption. And eventually, I think the industry realized that building great games actually takes time, and we need to be patient. Is this still... is this belief still in the air? Like, do people still believe that gaming, once the games are in the room and they're great, they will actually take us to mainstream adoption?
So my lens on this is that when you think of innovation broadly, it tends to happen from a whimsical, fun place, because that's what we as humans like to engage and interact in. So if you look, for instance, where do we get the chips for AI and Bitcoin mining and so on? Actually, it came from gaming. NVIDIA basically only existed because gamers wanted a better GPU, not for mining, but to basically play Call of Duty better or to play those games better. So it was actually a whimsical, fun experience that actually drove the innovation to a point where then you had that compute power and you had basically those curved screens and those funky keyboards and all that type of hardware, and even VR goggles, the primary use case, and even the iPhone. What was the number one use case for the iPhone when it first launched? Playing games. Steve Jobs hated it, right? He was actually originally trying to sort of say, oh, it's not for gaming, because that wasn't his vision, because everyone was playing Angry Birds and Candy Crush on it, right? Which created that mass adoption. And similar to Facebook, Facebook's initial growth was Farmville, right? So gaming, I think, has always been that sort of driver for growth in that area. And I think we're seeing similar cycles. So yes, play to earn, tap to earn is just the first phase, which to me is very similar to, the Mafia Wars and the Angry Birds and the tapping games of the early days of mobile. And the difference, what we're seeing is that just like in the early days of mobile didn't grow. So gaming didn't grow because hardcore gamers grew. It was capped in 2010, 11. PlayStation 3 was a disaster. It's because people started playing Candy Crush and Angry Birds, and they started playing on this device, and they're like, oh, this is kind of fun. I never had that chance to play. And then the percentage of those said, hey, I want to go to the next level of gaming, and then they started PlayStations, and the PlayStation 4 basically took off like hotcakes, right? So it was actually the innovation of mobile games that drew in a new audience, driving it from hundreds of millions of gamers to now 3.4 billion gamers. But there's still 3 billion people in the world who do not play games, and those are being driven in for value, right? And then a portion of them are going to go there. So that's why the Web3 gamers today are not the same type of gamers of Web2. And by the way, this was true for mobile too. The console gamer of 2010 was basically shitting all over mobile games, right? They were always saying, hey, we're never going to play console games ever, right? Because mobile games, because it's bad and it's small and who wants to play full? Now they're all playing it, right? It's the same cycle that we see. But games like Off the Grid, to your example, are the kind of games that will actually attract a Web2 gamer, not because they believe that it's a Web3 game or that there's value, but because it's as competitive in terms of the gameplay as a Web2 game.
Jonathan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think you got to just track the money. So people are always going to want a better experience, and so if you follow through how computers started, what was the goal of computers at the beginning? It was to be able to send an email. So if a computer could do that, that was really cool. And then someone said, well, I want to do more than send an email. I want to actually, Steve Jobs started talking about, I want fonts on my when I do a Word document, I want to be able to change my fonts. So we needed a better processor and a better graphics. Well, probably wasn't even graphics cards back then. But at some point, they needed a graphics card to make the computer be able to handle graphics. And then someone said, well, hey, if we've got this graphics card, we can build a game. And then once they got the gamers, so I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember, but Apple used to have the gaming community because their computers could handle the graphics and IBM couldn't even touch graphics. So somewhere along the line, IBM caught up and started making computers that had better graphics cards than Apple. And so it just changed. So the same thing's going to happen. The gamers will drag people into Web3. Gaming is the thing that will actually motivate people to learn how to connect a wallet. It'll motivate people to learn how to pursue their safety and how to get their coins protected. And once they've got motivated to do it, then they actually become part of the Web3 community. So it's getting over that initial, if you go back to teller machines when ATMs were first introduced to the world, like my parents just said, we'll never, ever go to an ATM machine. I want to go into a bank. I want to talk to a person. I'm not going to trust a machine with my money. Well, that all changes over time. So, you did a great example of that before. We need a bit of time, motivated by the games bringing people in, and then the technology is going to grow, and it's going to just keep moving that way. So the thing that needs the most technology, games are going to keep falling into it. Virtual reality is going to need more compute power. AI is going to need more compute power. So yeah, it's going to keep dragging.
It's really exciting. Johnson, growing up, I didn't have any incentives to play video games. I just played. It feels like Web3 might be putting this expectation of, in order for me to go and play a game, perhaps I want to earn some real money to, buy some candy or whatnot, or maybe something else if I'm really good at it. Is it changing the industry drastically? What are your thoughts?
You mean play to earn changing the industry, right? For sure, in many ways it did. First of all, in 2021, play to earn opened the Web3 gaming era. So it definitely gave a lot of hype, super crazy valuations to many studios out here, even some of us. So that was the beginning. Then I think the next big change in play to earn is what Yat mentioned earlier. Earlier this year, Telegram, literally tens and hundreds of million gamers. Most of them actually are bots, non-gamers, but they helped the Telegram ecosystem of gaming flourish. That's another big wave. I think play to earn will always have its role, but I think that the age for play to earn to significantly change the industry has already happened. My big bet is on these mass DAU, competitive gaming, leverage Web3 to enhance player experience to be the next main character in the next wave. But for sure, play to earn has played many, many roles along the way. And there will be more advanced forms of play to earn, like compete to earn, win to earn. That's more like traditional esport. That will continue to be more sustainable as well. So I do think that it is here to stay, but there will be even more ways to succeed in the gaming industry in Web3 beyond play to earn.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on this.
In terms of play to earn, or just in general?
Is play to earn essentially changing the expectation for all the gamers, like for the gaming industry abroad?
So I guess it depends on. So play to earn, to your point, play to earn has brought in a new type of gamer. So when you look at the example of Axie Infinity, yes, it was a form of making money, but those people who were playing Axie Infinity were not the people who were playing Call of Duty, right? Nor were they the same people that were maybe even playing, mobile games like Clash Royale and that type of stuff. They were a different category of gamer, and it brought them into the space. And a percentage of them might want to stay because of gaming, but the majority of them were there actually to try to derive a certain form of value. And what it did was it opened up essentially the gaming world to more like, let's call them sort of countries where that kind of income was important, where like maybe $3 or $5 extra made a difference. $3 or $5 is not going to make a difference to someone in the West for the most part. But also we shouldn't forget that the idea of making money through games has been around since forever. And I don't mean it in the sense of just like poker or that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but also when you think, for instance, real money gaming. Like in places like India, real money gaming is a major, major industry, right? Where, through a mechanism, not exactly like gambling, but through a form of skill, you're actually making real money, not in crypto, but just in cash, and then you get prize amounts, and Gamey and those companies do that as well. So that construct exists. That's a pretty significant multi-billion-dollar industry already in gaming, and that's just amplified itself in Web3. So it's just expanding that segment that didn't exist before. But I would say where it's going to go is it's kind of like the classic expression of, you come for the money and you stay for the culture, right? So what happens is that a lot of people go in, whether this was NFTs or this is like Axie Infinity, they come in and say, oh, there's some money involved. I could have an opportunity. It's economic in nature. So I go in and then I'm playing it, and then some will stay, and if they don't make money, they leave. But then, of course, what happens is they make friends and they make networks, right? And if you look at Bartle's taxonomy in games, 80% of gamers are people who are there for social reasons. You ask our children, why do you play Roblox? Most of them will say, because my friends are playing, not because it's got the best UI or UX or it's the most attractive looking game. So again, it's the social side of it. So money is kind of the incentive, whether it's someone advertising you or I get value, but then a real community starts to build from the ones that are there for social, cultural, and symbolic reasons. And so the revival of things like Axie Infinity and Sandbox and so on comes not from just speculation. It comes from the fact that there's a community there that's now become the core of that. Literally sort of, I guess, like the concept of, like the 1,000 true fans. And then from that, they've built out those communities and building from it. So now Axie with Ronin and now with Pixels on top of it, most people wrote Axie for dead. And it actually is doing very well and coming back, very much still in a certain element of play to earn. But people now who play Axie are not only there to make money, they're also there for social connection. So I think it's just part of that evolution.
I'd just like to add, the reason why gaming is leading the way is because, number one, gamers, are used to doing a lot of things online beyond entertainment. So they store value, they work online in the game, and they get rewards for it, be it rewards in the game or monetary rewards with play to earn. But this is what you call the economy of the metaverse, right? It's an economy. And just drawing in the blockchain, why does blockchain and Web3 play a part, is because one of the things that blockchain, Bitcoin, and tokens have done is they're able to, number one, tokenize assets. So a game can be tokenized and the assets within the game can be tokenized. And they found a way for those assets to be valued and ported across different environments. And that is going to be the key to unlocking this. My question is, what is a game, right? If you actually look at this time that we're in one of the most fast-moving technological revolutions that we've seen in our time. AI, generative AI, Web3, Web2, cloud. You look at all of these technologies that are converging at this time, and they're making, the evolution of gamification, and how we interact, something that's going to move at a pace that we've never seen before. And I think why that's important is that gaming and the things that we do in gaming will transition to education. What does the metaverse do? It removes geography. It allows you to do things online that you couldn't do before. So you add that to gaming, and it means that university education can be gamified. Everybody can attend Stanford and Harvard, right? Who can access the internet. And you start to see that gamification and the principles of gaming, which is interacting with people, meeting challenges, storing value, porting value across different environments, can start to engage to other things. And I think that's the excitement that Web3 can bring. Gaming will always have a limited value because at the moment it's just seen as an innovation. When Web3 AI starts to move that to real things like education and work and entertainment and communication, then you're going to see the next evolution, in my view.
I mean, I think there's this thing about the expression of, as humans, we learn through play, right? I mean, that's what they talk to, about children, the interaction on social, and actually, we learn best when it is fun and when there's a feeling attached to it, which actually happens through the mechanisms of gamification. The amount of things that our children learn in games because it's fun they can probably recite, Pokemons and game characters way better than any history character, right? Or any kind of math equation for the most part. Why? Because it's fun and it's engaging and it means something to them, right? And so we can take the same type of sort of fun learning and sort of storytelling expertise and translate basically into the growth of economies. And I think the empowering factor for me is, like we've seen in places like the Philippines, is that you teach them about fundamental things like ownership and financial systems and financial literacy. And I think this is something that most people don't really fully appreciate, is that most of the world, and places like Dubai don't have this because financial literacy is quite high here, but most of the world is financially quite illiterate. They don't understand about money, they don't invest, they don't have any idea about what that is. And so when they have an opportunity or they see that, it feels alien to them, and sometimes even they reject it, which is why I think we have these issues in the world right now, which we don't have to go into per se. But my point is that if you have a wider concentration of people that understand financial literacy, which is what Web3 has done, like all the people who were farming tokens initially with Axie Infinity, they were unbanked. They didn't have a wallet, they didn't have money, then they had a little bit of money, and then they made some realizations, and then a portion of them started to invest in other tokens, because they can't buy stocks in the stock market. They will never get a bank account, with $5 or $10 in their balance. And then they started to learn something about money and how the world works in terms of ownership and capitalism.
Absolutely.
Johnson, are you using AI in your company to enhance the games? Like, what's something new that is happening in the gaming world? Share something with me.
In fact, I think the combination of AI and Web3 is going to completely change the gaming world. Right now, as many other studios are doing, we are using AI for many of our 2D art. We are a studio of 30 people, only one 2D person, because AI saves 70% of the time for our 2D team so that they can make 2D art really easily. But going forward, right, what AI really changes, it puts the power of productivity into the hands of individuals. So what we're doing next is still being done right now. It's not designed out. But in our game, which is selling skins, we want to allow anyone with fandom, streamers, esports players, any celebrities, to generate their own AI-generated assets. Put the timestamp on it, verify unique so that it's 1 of 1 or 10 of 10, and verifiable that it's them who made it. Then we have an age where it's no longer the studios making all the content. It is any individual in this decentralized world who wants to make content. Of course, I can make one myself, but I have no fans. But I can give it to my girlfriend. Versus, anyone with fandom now can use AI, generate their own content, monetize their fandom, align their incentives so that they help promote your game. And even better, they have perpetual revenue stream coming from it because of smart contract. That's what's really going to change the gaming world, right? An infinitely personalized content powered by AI and blockchain technology.
Jonathan, how is AI changing the experience for the gamers?
AI gives us a lot of advantages in the sense that we've got characters in the game called NPCs, so non-player characters. And up till now, they've been pretty two-dimensional, so you can have them say a few things. But if you ask them a question outside of what they're programmed to say, they can't answer. So AI is moving these NPC characters into a position where you can't tell them from being a normal player. So in our game Dogs of War, we've got traders now who you go and buy things from, which is an NPC, a non-player character, and AI will be fully programmed to not only interact with the player, so it'll remember you when you come up to it, and if you've been there before, it'll say, oh, do you want what you had last time, or do you want something different? But it'll also have secrets to the game that it might know through rumours or through hearsay, or it might have had knowledge from some other direction. So if you ask the right questions, you'll be able to gain knowledge from this NPC, and that's never been possible before. So, that's just a glimpse into what's coming. In Playable, we've actually launched a new AI section of our company, and where we see an advantage is we're going to actually build some dev tools, because AI gives us an advantage. Building games is very repetitive, and so there's tasks that you have to do once, and then you have to duplicate it thousands of times. And in the past, like go back 5 years, you would have to hire staff to do that, and they would spend their day doing it. Now an AI can be given the instruction on how to, if the task is crafted correctly, the AI can duplicate it. So we're going to build out AI tools for game developers, and then we've got a SaaS part of our company being built to sell those tools out to other game developers. So AI is going to change gaming dramatically and very, very quickly.
Is it making the game experience more sophisticated? Having like a more intelligent realm to play?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Is it making the gaming experience more sophisticated, just having AI integrated in the game?
Well, I mean, like, it's not a magic potion. There's work to do between, like, our experience of AI right now is we're in the first breath. Mm-hmm. All right, everyone's really excited, and you've got your heavy-hitting AI scientists chasing AGI, and gaming at this point is very low down on the totem pole. So hence we've created our own division to bring scientists into our company to help develop stuff. As far as what's going to happen in the games, we're literally in the first, year of development. So it's very, very early.
David, gamification is amazing for loyalty and retention. Do you feel that it's still in some way being underused, given like how powerful it is in terms of product? And could it be used in a way that maybe hasn't been done before?
No, I think it's a really good question. I believe that this is going to be the next front of competition. If you look at the way the landscape's shaping up, coming from a mobile phone background, before, we would get customers, who would buy the mobile phone, and they'd use us for calls, they'd use us for data, they'd use us for texting. So we own that customer touch point. Then we saw the over-the-top players. So now, they buy the phone, but they use WhatsApp for messaging. They use Instagram for messaging. They do things on top, right? So who owns the customer? Right? Everybody owns the customer. So in order to get the customer to more engaged and to use your product, gamification, which leads to engagement, is going to be the next front of competition. But I think some of the, I was really excited about what you said. In terms of the creator economy and the convergence of the creator economy and games. Because if you look at YouTube, the content on YouTube, a lot of it is coming from people. Actually, more of it's coming from AI now, right? But a lot of it's coming from people. AI is giving people the ability to produce content. And I think it's really exciting when you start looking at people being able to not only play games, but actually create the content in games. And more than that, then to own the assets of the content that they create and the rewards. I think there's a few themes that's happening here. We're moving towards a world of wallets, right? The wallet will be increasingly will be the gateway to financial activity in platforms and gaming. We're moving towards a world of tokens, right? Real-world asset tokenization is going to be one of the biggest things. And it's not just going to be real-world assets, it's going to be gaming assets, which are tokenized, providing liquidity, value, and portability. And we're moving towards a world of connected people. And when you put and we're moving towards a world of AI agents. When you put all of these things together, what you have is the ingredients for the next age of digital gamification. One of the key things to unlocking it, though, will be digital identity. And this idea of self-sovereign digital identity, where essentially the assets you have, number one, you have the ability to automatically authenticate your identity across different platforms, which means that the platforms don't own your identity or the touch point, you do, and they need to incentivize you to play in those platforms. And the other thing is, your value, tokens, etc., become another another asset linked to your identity that can be authenticated. I personally believe that the key to that identity to move quickly will be the phone number, right? And having a phone number which can link your physical world activities to your online world activities across different platforms is the quickest way to get there. But I believe that these trends are the key ingredients that's leading to this next generation of gamification and gaming.
Interesting. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, first, I agree that digital identity is going to be really important. I find it, you're from Vodafone, so I get it. But I find it interesting that you look at the phone number as that. And the reason, by the way, the reason why I'm hesitant on the phone number, not to say that it isn't important and critical, is because the phone number at the end of the day isn't really owned by the end user, right? So the powerful thing about digital identity is through soul-bound technologies like a soul-bound NFT.
It can be one of the attributes of the
self-sovereign
identity.
I agree.
The self-sovereign phone number.
Yes, but the phone number in and of itself, like when you give up your subscription, then you lose your phone number, and then what happens? Someone else has that number, and then suddenly he receives. I'm like when I get a phone number from a new country, sometimes I get a strange text from, "Hey, Susie, how are you?" I'm like, I'm not Susie because there was a number that someone had a year ago and just texting them, right? That's the challenging thing because it's not your number. But generally, I do agree it could be one of the attributes. I think the powerful thing about digital identity is reputation. One of the problems that we have in general in the digital space is that reputation is locked by the platforms. So the reputation of Facebook is owned by Facebook. The reputation by Amazon is owned by Amazon. My seller rating or my buyer rating is not something I can export, meaning I can't take that credit I've developed in that platform, the other platform, and move it out because it's not mine to begin with. And that's how they create these moats. Right? For instance, if you have a great gamer rating on Steam, right, as a gamer, then that's the reason why you, as a game company, want to launch on Steam, because you want that gamer that has that reputation. Steam's the one capturing that value, right? Same is true for Apple, Facebook, all those guys. And so the innovation around digital identity is that I own it on the sovereign basis. People can attest reputation to it. I think it'll solve things like airdrop farms, like all the Sybil attacks. Magic Eden just did a big drop, right? And I think I just saw this tweet where 1,320 wallets were basically farming Magic Eden tokens to the value of I don't know how many millions of dollars, and then just sent it all over to Binance to basically trade it out. That type of stuff needs to stop, but that's basically what's happening in the space because they're basically Sybil farming, and reputation can solve that. So I agree with that. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was like UGC. So, obviously YouTube and so on have shown that, but also in gaming, the number one and number two biggest game in the world is Roblox and Minecraft. And what is it all about? It's all about UGC. Right? Roblox is other people making games. Minecraft is other people building experiences like with redstones and so forth, right? And then the big games that we talk about, like the Fortnites and the PUBG, they're good, but they're nowhere near the number of users that those two games have because of user-generated content. And I think this whole mashup culture and being able to attribute value, especially in the AI future, is going to be so critical because now I can say, hey, that content was a part of what I created, and I should receive a sliver of that value from an intellectual property standpoint. And the only technology that can do that at scale in an open, transparent manner at literally like microfractions of a value is blockchain. So it's not to say that your content is worth a lot, but you get attribution. And that attribution has a reputational impact, but it also has potentially a monetary one.
Johnson, one thing I've been paying attention a lot is the rise of gadgets. And in the gaming world specifically, we've seen like consoles taking different shapes. And nowadays we have VR, we have the Vision Pro, mobile, laptops, whatnot. Is there something, do you envision like new devices coming through with the rise of AI?
Wow, that's a deep question. New devices coming because of AI. I have not seen anything that no one, you guys have not heard of. So I'm going to comment on this, that AI just makes, as I said earlier, the cost producing content lower, which will inherently make gadgets that used to have a barrier because the high cost, like VR,
right,
really come through. What's really, for example, VR, what's really changed over the last 3 years in VR? AI wave lowered the cost of productivity. Two, so much GPU has been produced, especially in Taiwan, to produce the hardware is now there. Three, now there's big brands like Apple coming into the VR. So I think that the AI age will make content of production lower, which now fulfills one of these pillars that's needed for the gadgets revolution, because gadgets needs lower marginal cost. Lower marginal cost comes because of scale. AI makes that scale possible because there's more good content. So that's what's going to change. I am not a hardware guy. I can't tell you which hardware will really be coming, but I can tell you that AI will make gadgets like VR really commercializable now.
So maybe the comment I want to add on this is that at least what we've seen in the world of gaming and technology broadly, that we've come to an era where the social capital of the hardware, of the enabling that the hardware does, is actually what's powerful. So in other words, you buy this phone not because it can make a phone call, which is what we all thought in the age of Nokia. We buy the phone because it's actually a social device. And we play this game and buy this hardware to play a game better because it enhances my social experience. So the aspect of enhancing your social capital is where gadgets are going in terms of how do I enhance both my social status and the status in which I'm engaged in. Right? And so I think there's going to be an era where people are more and more focused on that, which is also why brands like even headphones and simple utility brands are so focused on social brand awareness, because it's actually about that connection that you make. Right? And this is what you see with brands as well. When they see someone wearing a certain kind of gadget, there's a connection. Right? You could argue that buying Razer equipment is just a better gaming equipment, but actually you're part of the Razer community, right? And you're like, oh, you got a Razer mouse, and you got a Razer mouse, and like, and you have a Snicky, and that's kind of part of that image as well. So it's the social side that becomes more important than specifically the function of the hardware.
Interesting. We're wrapping up. My last question is a game-like question. We're gonna. I want to hear your hot takes. So predictions for next year. We could start perhaps with Yat.
So I mean, I don't know how much of a hot take it is, but so I think meme coins are going to be launching their own games, or game companies are going to be adopting meme coins in their games and using them that way, in this sort of classic cycle that we see because they have communities. So I would say that's one. And the other thing that I would say is 2025 will be the year of Web3 gaming. That's probably not a hot take, but I'll still say it.
It's a good hot take. David.
I see more user-generated content being added to the games. And I'd also agree with you on the meme coins, right? I think that will be a massive part of the ecosystem going forward.
Johnson.
I think the year 2025 will be the year where traditional gamers enter Web3 gaming without knowing it at mass scale, like hundreds of millions of them, because of these studios producing games for traditional gamers is really going to flourish in the next year.
Jonathan.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a very big crypto year next year. I think crypto itself is going to go much bigger than what a lot of people think. And that's going to have massive roll-on effects. Obviously, most gaming studios are further down the totem pole than the major chains. But as that money rolls down, we're going to see several gaming companies, studios, gaming-involved cryptos move into the top 100. So it's going to be, much more eyes on. And then, yes, gamers are going to come, whether they know it or not. There's 2 billion Web3 gamers coming through mobile devices and lower form computers that aren't playing Web2 games right now. And they're going to be brought by the ability to earn $2 or $3 a day playing a game. So that's a lot of money to them in their country. We keep losing track in the Western world that we're not the only ones that are interested in this. So in our games right now, we've got Indonesian and Filipino players that are out earning their parents. So, and they're playing games. So and they're doing it while going to school. So yeah, it's going to be really cool what's going to come.
Guys, it's been truly insightful. Thank you so much.